Krishna's 6 years old, and he's just finished a whole session with Balaram, where he's been appreciating how all the trees and everything and everybody in the forest, besides the cowherd boys, everyone's worshiping him and being honored by him, by his glance and so forth and so on. And when that was done, that section, the boys were off playing in different ways. And it's really nice. So we're continuing with text 19. If you have a handheld device, you can find 10, 15, 19. Krishna's resting on his head on the lap of a cowherd boy. Some cowherd boys are fanning him. Some cowherd boys are singing very appropriately so he can rest nicely. And in this way, the Supreme Lord, whose soft lotus feet are personally attended by the goddess of fortune, concealed his transcendental opulences by his internal potency and acted like the son of a cowherd. Yet, even while enjoying like a village boy, in the company of other village residents, he often exhibited feats only God could perform. Isha Cheshtatam. I've seen this word several times lately. Cheshta means his pastimes. It more explicitly, it's his activities. But he has powers of God, or Isha Cheshtata, and sometimes he exhibits them, and sometimes he conceals them. And when he conceals them, he conceals them with his Madhurya Cheshtatam, or his potencies of sweetness. And that's Braja especially. But even in Braja, he would sometimes kill demons and lift Govardhan Hill and doing amazing things with his godly power. Sanatana Goswami writes about this pastime. Although reciprocal affection seems to follow the ways of the ordinary world, it is beyond the world. It combines intimate sweetness, amazing opulence, and worldly simplicity. Very nice, Sanatana Goswami. So here's commentary. Goloka's Lord and its residents care for one another as do people in the material world, yet their prema transcends the limits of mundane love. The loving dealings of Braja are like nothing ever seen in this world. When Mother Yashoda simply remembers Krishna, milk flows from her breasts, and Nanda Maharaj is constantly drenched in a flood of his own tears of love for Krishna. The cowherd men use everything they have, even their wives and children, only for Krishna's pleasure, never their own. And some of the old ladies of Braja adopt the mood of Yashoda, while others disguise themselves as their own young daughters to please Krishna. Krishna's friends are constantly desirous of seeing him, so much so they cannot tolerate even a momentary obstruction caused by Krishna's passing behind a tree. And the blessed cowherd girls have no interest in life other than him, whether separated from him, or going out to meet him, or enjoying his company. They relish all sorts of extraordinary ecstasy. paragraph. In these ways, the prema of Vraja is both amazing and sweet, combining within itself the majestic opulence of the spiritual world and the simple sweetness of the material world. The devotees of Vraja possess superworldly opulence, and at the same time they are the most simple people. By their opulent power, they are expertly able to understand and take part in all the various aspects of the Lord's countless pastimes. And, like ordinary people, the Brajavasis, it is well known from the accounts of their lives, enjoy food and drink, the company of friends and relatives, and so on. And even the personality of Godhead, though showing his opulence, shows it in the pastimes of an ordinary child. During his infant pastimes, for example, Krishna drank milk from the breast of Putana and sucked out the life air from that powerful witch who had never suspected he could do so. And in countless other ways, the Lord, although showing his opulence, acted like an ordinary human being. As the narrative of Brihad Bhagavatamrita continues, this will be thoroughly explained. With such ideas in mind, Sri Shukadev Goswami said, quote, and this is text 19, "In this way, the Supreme Lord, whose soft lotus feet are personally attended by the goddess of fortune, concealed his transcendental opulence by his internal potency and acted like the son of a cowherd. Yet, even while enjoying, like a village boy, in the company of other village residents, he often exhibited feats only God could perform." 10, 15, 19. The word vidambayan in this 10th canto verse is a form of the verb, so the verbal root is vidamb, or to imitate, as a present participle or imitating. This participle form, however, can also sometimes mean for the purpose of, as it does here, for the purpose of imitating. Thus, the verse can be construed to say that Krishna hides his supremacy, vigudhatma gati, by his own special potencies, swamayaya, for the purpose of imitating or assuming the nature of a cowherd boy. Gopatma jatvam. Gopatma jatvam. He hides his godly powers, atmagati, so that he can act like an ordinary human. But his absolute power is still discernible in the extreme limit of the perfect sweetness he displays in each of his pastimes. He enjoys having his feet massaged by the supreme goddess of fortune, and he does things only God can do, Isha Cheshtata, and yet he plays like an ordinary village boy, Gramya Vat, in the company of other villagers. I'll just try to summarize all of that Sanskrit grammatical stuff. This is Gopi Pranadhana's presentation of Sanatana Goswami's commentary on his writings, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, or in which is commenting on this verse from the Bhagavatam. So, vidamb is the dhatu, or verbal root, of to imitate, or in the present participle it's imitating, vidambayan, imitating. So he's acting, or he's covering his true divinity position by his sweetness. And then he goes on to say, it's actually, that is one of his greatest divinity powers. It is the greatest divinity power, is his sweetness. And his sweetness is so abundant, that the residents of Vrindavan don't detect the other aspect of his divinity. His Gramya Vat, playing like, Vat means having the quality of like, Gramya, like a village cowherd boy. It's a potency of his. It's him. But in exhibiting this particular form, the cowherd boy form and the cowherd boy activities with the cowherd boys and all of the others, it's his supreme excellence. He's hiding this lesser supreme excellence, his Aishvarya, by his greater supreme excellence. And that greater supreme excellence hides the other part. Anyway, I like it. Then that was 3.7. The 3.5, 81. Here's 3.7, 124. Again, later, but referring to the same Leela. Some of the cowherd boys, who were all great souls, freed of all sin, would then massage his lotus feet, and others would expertly fan him. Commentary. When Krishna's cowherd friends, who loved him so much, saw that he was fatigued, many of them responded immediately, doing whatever they could to relieve his discomfort. In this flurry of activity, the boys were overcome by ever-increasing affection for him. Many boys would massage his legs, either one boy at a time or in turns, or else all the boys massaging various places at once. It may also be that to please his beloved friends, who all wanted to serve him in this way, the Supreme Lord manifested his all-pervasive form, without leaving aside his form as the son of Nanda Maharaj, and allowed a huge crowd of cowherd boys to massage his feet simultaneously, each unseen by the others. Thus, Krishna displayed his supreme powers even in his childhood pastimes, as expressed in a later verse of the Bhagavatam 1:15-19 by the words Isha Cheshtataha, or exhibiting feats only God can perform. With this in mind, instead of taking the word Mahatmanaha in this verse to refer to Krishna's friends, we can take it as referring to Krishna, the Supreme Soul. In these pastimes, Krishna demonstrates the greatness of the Supreme Being even more convincingly than in God's typical activities like creation. In these childhood pastimes, Krishna shows his power to enchant the world with his sweetness. Isn't that nice? That's really nice. Paragraph. Shukadeva Goswami speaks of Krishna's friends as Hata Papmanaha, or persons who have had their sins destroyed. For ordinary pious persons, whatever contradicts the principles of religion is sin. But for devotees of the Supreme Lord, sin is anything that obstructs pure devotional service. And that is the sense that it applies here, semicolon. The cowherd boys of Braja have not the slightest inclination to do anything that does not please Krishna. Krishna himself is also called Hata Papmanaha, in the sense that he destroys the sins of all the worlds by displaying his glories for everyone to hear and chant. And finally, a little section from, I can't read because it's blocked out. It's another verse where this verse is referred to. This is the Kali Alila. Okay. I can't read what verse it is because it's blocked out. O descendant of the Kurus. Huh? What? Yeah, but what's the verse number? 10, 16, 15. Same chapter. 41, 49. Well, the Kali Alila is in the same chapter. 10, 15, 41. Okay. O descendant of the Kurus. That's Mars Priksha. Their minds bewildered by the Lord Shakti, the boys sipping the poisonous water fell down on the bank of the river as if dead. And the commentary reads, this verse explains that the arrangements were made by the powers of the Lord's Shakti in charge of future pastimes. The boys had their knowledge taken away by the influence of the Lord's Leela Shakti. It may be explained as Icha Cheshtataha, or acts only the Lord can perform. Just by sipping that water, they fell down as if lifeless. The word, quote, poison is repeated from the last verse to indicate the strength of the poison. The boys were as if without life, since the cause was the arrangement of the Lord. So that's the commentary for text 19. So now we're going to 10, 15, 20. Translation. Once, some of the cowherd boys, Sri Dam, the very close friend of Ram and Krishna, along with Subal, Stoka, Krishna, and others, lovingly spoke the following words. BBT purport. The word prem na, or with love, indicates that the request the cowherd boys are about to place before Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram is motivated by love, not personal desire. The cowherd boys were eager for Krishna and Balaram to exhibit their pastimes of killing demons and to enjoy the delicious fruits of the Tal forest, and therefore they made the following request. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, in this verse begins a description in order to show how Krishna and Balaram displayed power, Isha Chestitaha, mentioned in the previous verse. The boys spoke with prema. Thus, under the guise of wanting to get tal fruits for themselves, they actually wanted to get the fruit for giving to Krishna and Balaram. And another commentary says essentially the same. Jiva Goswami writes, the first day's herding cows was described as typical of others. Now this is chapter 15, which follows chapter 14. And chapter 14 marks the end of Krishna taking care of the calves. And chapter 15 marks he's now starting to take care of the cows. And he's now 6 years old. So he's entered another phase, Poganda. And there's a whole elaborate description of what that means in terms of his feelings, in terms of his bodily features, in terms of how he conducts the pastimes, which are very similar to when he was smaller, but the mood that he is in and the stimulation of the love of the others is what's noted. So the build-up is everybody's in this exhilarated mood, and it's just the first day. And now it's the tal fruits and Dhenukasura. Now to show some of the powers that Krishna manifested while herding the cows to please his dear friends, a story is related. Balaram's name is mentioned before Krishna's because he was the most prominent in fighting. Subal and others were also friends. Sridham is mentioned first since he was the chief friend in Braja. Another boy was called Stoka Krishna. he was given this four-syllable name because it would have been improper to call him Krishna. His form was similar to Krishna's, and thus, giving a similar name, his father thought that the name would produce affection for Krishna. The boys spoke out of love for a dear friend, not for obtaining tal fruit, and not for getting the demon killed. The nature of prema is sometimes expressed as a request for a desired object, or they made the request with the desire that Balaram and Krishna could eat out of affection as friends. Friend arises because of great similarity in which each has knowledge of the other's ability. Quote from chapter 12. Has this living creature come to swallow us if we enter it? If he does so, he will immediately be killed like Bakasura by Krishna without delay. That's Agasura before the Brahma Vimohan Leela. There was some question raised the other day. How is it that Krishna allowed the cowherd boys to enter the mouth of Agasura the other way. Why did the cowherd boys enter the mouth of Agasura if they thought that Agasura was a big, terrible snake? And here's part of that answer. If he does, he will immediately be killed, like Bakasura, by Krishna. They're fearless. Thus the boys speak in the next verse with knowledge of Balaram's powers. The love indicated here is natural friendship mixed with Vira Rasa, similar to Arjuna requesting Krishna's help while fighting. Little Rasa Tattva going on. Sanatan Goswami writes, the first day's herding cows was described as typical of other days. Now, to show some of the powers that Krishna manifested while herding the cows to please his dear friends, a story is related. Subal and Soka Krishna were friends. Sridham is mentioned first because of the excellence of his intense friendship, or because he was the chief friend. Stoka Krishna was a cowherd with a similar name to indicate his friendship. Krishna was born first and named Krishna. Stoka Krishna was born later, and because he was inferior to Krishna, he was called Stoka Krishna, or Little Krishna. The word Adi indicates other chief friends, like Amshu, Arjuna, Vishala, Vrishabha, Ojasvi, Devaprastha, Varutapa, and Bhadrasena. They spoke out of prema, not with greed for the tal fruit, and not for killing the demon. They spoke to please their dear friend. The nature of prema is to sometimes request dear things. They requested because they were attached to glorifying his punishing the demons. Jiva Goswami writes in his Krama Sandarbha, there's just one page left here. Same points. In his Priti Sandarbha, he mentions this and the next two verses. Once, some of the cowherd boys, Sridham, the very close friend of Rama and Krishna, along with Subal, Soka Krishna, and others, lovingly spoke the following words, which were, Rama, Rama, O mighty armed one, O Krishna, destroyer of the miscreants, not far from here is a very great forest filled with rows of palm trees. Someone may say that because the cowherd boys approached Krishna and Balaram with awe and veneration. It's a different rasa on veneration. This passage is inappropriate for the Sakya rasa or Sakya bhas, or it's Sakya bhas. It's in conflict with Sakya. However, this passage is, in truth, not at all inappropriate, for although they were aware that Krishna and Balaram were both very powerful and heroic, the boys still thought Krishna and Balaram were their equals and not their superiors at all. Their awareness of the great power and heroism of Krishna and Balaram only increased the boys' affection for them in Sakya Ras. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:58-14, O Arjuna, the slayer of powerful enemies, donned his armor, mounted his chariot, flying the flag of Hanuman, took up his bow and his two inexhaustible quivers, and went to sport with Lord Krishna in a large forest filled with fierce animals. As it was shown in Srimad Bhagavatam in these two verses, or this evening in the next one, the knowledge of Lord Krishna's heroic power enhanced Arjuna's affection for him in Sakya Ras. The same kind of situation where the knowledge of Lord Krishna's heroic power enhances the love his friends feel for him is also seen in these words. 10:12-24, again, that's the Aghasura demon. Then the boys said, same verse, has this living creature come to swallow us up? If he does so, he will immediately be killed like Bakasura without delay. Thus, they looked at the beautiful face of Lord Krishna, the enemy of Bakasura, and laughing loudly and clapping their hands, they entered the mouth of the python. And that's it for the commentary on these verses. Because I've been doing this for a long time, it's like, not the same, but it's like sitting at the feet of these great personalities, the six Goswamis and the other Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and other commentators, and just hearing them discuss topics of Krishna and relishing the topics of Krishna and how they might express to one another, this word can mean this word can also mean that, and there are different ways of relishing the topics of Krishna's pastimes. But they're certainly absorbed in loving exchanges, and the special nature of the loving exchange of Braja Leela, the whole of all the Brajabasis, of course, in this case, it's the cowherd boys, but whatever the pastime is, it's somebody. And earlier in the chapter, it's all the flora and fauna and birds and beasts and all the living entities within the forest of Vrindavan, because he's going out with the cows now. It's not just a short radius and back for lunch. He's out for the whole day. And besides he's a little boy enjoying, he's giving ecstasy to all the living entities that are residents in the Vrindavan forest. When a passage that struck me and is still with me very much, when Krishna, all the Brijbasis, when the cowherd community decided to move from Gokul Mahavan to the other side of the Jamuna River to Vrindavan town, Vrindavan forest. They had their reasons, and they had their, assembly, and Upananda asked them, do you all agree? And they all agreed. And it's a nice description. Within one day, they had all their belongings packed. Try it. And when one day that all their belongings packed on bullock carts. I mean, their homes and their everything, all their belongings packed. And off they went and crossed, and this whole crossing the river was, an adventure. And there's all kinds of nice details of, it's not in the Bhagavatam, but it's a commentary of our acharyas. And the Krishna at this age is 3 years, 4 months. So he's talking like a 3-year-old to Balaram, saying funny things and asking, it's Rohini, Yashoda, Krishna, and Balaram on a special cart, bullock cart. And he's asking, why do those trees have whiskers? And Mother Yashoda says, that's not a tree with whiskers, that's a banyan tree. And then Krishna asks another question and asks another question and asks another question. And in very sober way, Mother Jasoda's training these boys. And then they laugh and they pull each other and giggle, and they just like behaving like little boys. And they're enjoying the pastimes of childhood together. And then when they get to the other side of the river Jamuna, they take all the carts and make them in kind of like a semicircle, so they're protected from any wildlife. And behind them is the river Jamuna. And Krishna is just like rolling on the banks of the river Jamuna. And the commentary, they make a big deal. There are 3 things that he has been waiting for this. It's 3. The banks of the river Jamuna, the forest of Vrindavan, and Govardhan Hill. And there's a long explanation of how Vrindavan forest includes Govardhan Hill. It's on the perimeter, but it's part of Vrindavan forest, of the 12 forests. And it gives the dimensions, how many yojanas this way, that way, and all the whole thing. But so he is just 3 years, 4 months. But he's so happy. He's so happy. I mean, he's happy always, but he's happy being with those who are his eternal loving associates, and he's just rolling around, enjoying being in Vrindavan. And the very next day, his father is taking the cows. So Krishna tags along at 3 years, 4 months, and he wants to take charge of the cows. And the cowherd men observe that the cows won't go anywhere where Krishna isn't, and wherever Krishna is, the cows follow him. So they're like mystified. And Krishna's begging and begging, and little boy begging. He wants to take care of the cows. They're saying, no, the cows are so big and you're so little. But he keeps begging, and they keep following, and finally a compromise is made. You can take care of the calves. But you have to go within a certain boundary. You have to come back for lunch. But now he doesn't have to come back. So he covers the whole of Vrindavan with the cows. It's like his happiness. His happiness. And all the forest animals, and they've been waiting, and here he comes, and yay, they're very happy. He's very happy to see them. It's really a very special place, and as we're hearing, it's every day. Every day is a festival. Like those that have to organize Rath Yatra and Janmashtami and other big festivals know what an ordeal it is to organize those things. But in Vrindavan, it's every day. And his Leela Shakti just arranges everything. Now we get further description from particularly Rupa Goswami of the cast of characters. Vrinda Devi and the Radharani's principal gopis as he gets a little older, and the whole entourage that make Krishna's, but it's just different personalities who are absorbed in whatever is going to make Krishna happy. And there's nothing else that is meaningful to them. And then his ways of happiness are mysterious. Sometimes and sometimes and sometimes. That's because that's how this whole kvachit. Sometimes it's just like really special. Like waves in a river. Now, in the United States, there are not too many rivers that have like really big waves, at least the ones that I've seen. But just a little sharing, a little detour over to the boundary. There's a place. I visited Guyana several times, and it has 3 parts, and it's divided by 2 rivers, east and west of those big rivers. And one of the rivers is you have to get in a speedboat, and it takes an hour, almost an hour in a speedboat to get from one side to the other side of the river. It's a big river. And there are times to travel by speedboat and times not to travel. In the early morning, it's fine. And after a certain time, the mood of the river starts to change. And when it's raining, it's another mood. And when it's stormy, it's another mood. And very responsive to the climatic conditions. That's, rivers have different moods. And even the same time of the day, there's different places where, and the boatmen, they know where to go and where it's less turbulent and so on. So I think of that when I'm reading these pastimes. It's one mood to the next mood to the next. It just keeps flowing and flowing and flowing like waves in a river. And Krishna's navigating and taking the cowherd boys, and they don't know what's next, and they don't mind at all because they're with Krishna. It's just fine. He's their protector, and they're in an adventuresome spirit, and so is Krishna, and he's laughing, and they're laughing, and they're playing, and he's playing, and there's danger, and Krishna takes care of the danger. And they only have one thing in their mind, and that's Krishna. The tal fruits are for Krishna, the demons for Krishna to deal with. And although we heard previous, they have powers like Krishna. They're very powerful, but they don't exhibit that power by Leela Shakti's arrangement. They just let Krishna do that. Then they celebrate when Krishna does it. It's a really special place. And at different ages, in this section is the cowherd boy age. In the earlier section, it's the vatsalya, the parental affection, and on and on and on, and this and that and the other, how there's parental affection. And then the young boys, and then now he's turning into an age where he's thinking about the gopis, although he's just 6, and they're thinking about him for sure. So that it's not growing, it's just diversifying. It's like the river with different moods, or it's waves with different heights and different thises and that's. So, Krishna and Vrindavan, that's where our bhakti path is leading us. So it's nice to get a picture, along with reading Bhagavad Gita and understanding Krishna Tattva. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj, for the beautiful reading. It's a very, very sweet pastime. I was just thinking that what you just read was the Bhauma Leela of Krishna, right? What's happening on
Yes.
on this planet, right?
Yeah.
But then, is it this? What we understand that in the spiritual Goloka Vrindavan, there is just a sense of the demons appearing, and there's only a talk about it, but there are no real demons coming, right?
There's 2 points of view, A and B. And I lean towards A. There's another leaning that some personalities, some of our spiritual authorities, lean in the other direction. There are actually demons. Now, don't ask me to support it, because I've grown up with there's no demons in Vrindavan. But if you're interested in reading about it, I can point you to where you can read about it and have your mind disturbed that there's actually demons in Vrindavan. Then you're going to have to choose between A and B.
So then the follow-up question would be that when there's only a sense of it, then does the Leela Shakti of Krishna still act in the same way of, covering the coward boy's understanding or the sense of it, or how?
Exactly how does it work, I don't know, but it's something like this. A rumor or a murmur, or someone says, "Look out! Here comes Aristasura," and there's no Aristasura. Or the way that Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj describes it is someone comes running through, no one has seen this person before. They come running through Vrindavan. "Here comes Aristasura. Here he comes, he's a giant, look out." And then the person disappears. And Aristasura never came, but there's the mood or bhava, the inspiration, the Leela Shakti's influence, so they feel, "Oh, Krishna." The uplifting of the mood of shelter taking because of some danger that just isn't even there. It's like Yogamaya. These acharyas, like Jiva Goswami in particular, like Leela Shakti. We're accustomed to Yogamaya. Yogamaya inspires one to feel something, or to say something, or to do something by Yogamaya's influence. For like Arjuna to become bewildered, or this passage we just read where they're entering into the forest, and Arjuna is in a chivalrous spirit and he's asking for Krishna's help. So it's inspired. And Krishna inspires according to the love of his devotees. Free will is there, and Krishna is reciprocating with free will, and he's fulfilling and supporting. So, back to are there demons in this Goloka? I'm of the school, I'm accustomed to the school that says no. But there's a sense that it acts in such a way, like Yogamaya, one feels there's risk coming our way. We need to take deeper shelter of Krishna. And they don't even have to think about it, because they're already there. They just intensify their shelter taking. And then that explanation goes further to say that when the eternal associates of Krishna manifest in his earthly pastimes, a worldly Bhauma Leela, then they actually see the demons, and they actually see Krishna's birth, and so forth and so on. And there's slight variations for enjoyment's sake, but the main theme is there in his Bhauma Leela.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
You listen very carefully. You must have some thoughts to share with us. Anything you want to share with us? It can just be reflection. It doesn't have to be a question. Whatever you like.
Yeah. No, especially the word premena you spoke about, and this one, it took me like almost to Vrindavan, as if like, live thing going on. But these rasas are so intense.
Yeah.
How do we, for a moment, yes, carried away, but then again you realize Krishna is the supreme, like again. So how does is Krishna's all friend? They come in and out of the two rasas, like whether they stay into the like Sakhya
How do
rasa.
they do, or how do we do? Which is your?
How do we do understand?
How do we do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. How do we get to the state that they're in? Is that what you're asking? No, you're asking in our present state, when we become inspired by these pastimes, what's going on within us, and why do we come back?
Yeah, like you feel, for instance, and then again you're out, like thrown out.
And you want to know why that happens. Okay. Well, because we have affinity for the temporary. The awakening of affinity for the transcendental comes through the process of hearing from the right source with the right intensity. And, when we're less distracted, when we're more distracted, we're hearing less or less feeling and, experiencing a higher taste. But it's the opportunity that's given by these narrations. It's similar to the statement we just read in the Uddhava Gita, chapter 11, where Krishna says to Uddhava, "It's my pastimes that free worldly people from all of their sinful contamination." And hearing about them frees one from sinful. So when the covering or the Maya curtain or bewildering influence, etc., slackens, then our dormant consciousness rises or awakens. However, there's very strong conditioned tendency for affinity for the temporary. So we just slide back down, with effortlessly. And so what's required is regularly hear, regularly cleanse, regularly awaken until there's some taste for it, and then it continues and continues. Even when you're doing your worldly duties, your thoughts are with those topics. You're not like distracted. You're sitting in your workstation doing your office work and you're daydreaming about Krishna's pastimes. But affinity for Krishna is vibrant, vital, palpable. And then when you return to reading and hearing and reading and stuff, then you're accessing it quickly, more quickly than presently. Do you know Burijan Prabhu? Of him at least? Yeah. He shared something that when he was preparing for Bhakti Vaibhav study, the texts, he would study for some number of hours, I forget, 5 to 7 hours every day. And his realization afterwards was the first 2-3 hours, it was arduous. But after getting so immersed and absorbed, that it was the arduousness diminished and the taste increased. So therefore, it's like chanting or reading or anything. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nityam, in one sense, is always, and another is, a casual one or a relaxed one is regularly. Nityam, regularly, daily, at least. And then is that daily, so it's, what to do, back to your question, you did Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. With faith, with a degree of intensity of wanting to know, wanting to be connected to Krishna in as much detail, as much precision as possible. And not just information-wise, but relationship-wise. That's what to do. And until that happens, then it's the unsteady rising and falling and rising and falling. Sure.
Like hearing like these pastimes it seems like you're hearing through your heart.
Yes.
And when it comes to like other philosophy, then you're using your mind to understand the technicality of.
Initially, but behind that understanding the technicality of, like somebody was sharing, and I kind of got a little like confrontational about the question. It's not dry. Tattva and rasa, neither are dry. The tattva helps us take proper shelter in the rasa part. It refines our taste in the rasa part. And evam yoveti tattvataha. By understanding Krishna in tattva. So we have to have Krishna tattva in order to have that capacity to really taste rasa properly. And therefore, we Srimad Bhagavatam is written with 12 cantos, not with one. And such rasika devotees as Shukadev narrating in just this mind-blowing detail all about creation and all those other things that are in the Krishna Tattva category or the Sambandha category. Yeah. Anything from our hostess? Which one? Dhenukasura? You know the Dhenukasura story? We're getting there. We're almost there. We're not in the forest yet, but they want...
Coming to.
We're coming.
Yeah. Following up the question that Lalji Prabhu said, are all his the Gopalas who are with him, they have mainly just Sakhya Bhava. They don't have like he's the supreme God.
No.
They always.
No.
So we can just maintain that more than.
We can or they can?
We can. Because, when we enjoy
you have to have the adhikar.
But when we read, that is the feeling.
But it stimulates that feeling. At the same time, we're not qualified. There's a degree of purification required, a degree of, let's say it this way. There's a blessing that's bestowed upon them, and for us, we need to qualify ourselves to have such a blessing bestowed upon us. Until that blessing is bestowed upon us, we look up to the cowherd boys that have that intimacy.
Yes.
And we appreciate and relish that intimacy that they have.
Yeah.
And we may want to hanker for that intimacy and love that they have.
Yes.
And we're looking up to them.
Yes.
We're not looking, equal to them.
No. Truly, we are looking up to them.
Yeah.
And
Shukadev looks up to them. Like, there's a celebrated verse. We keep referring to it because Prabhupada did. Krita Punya Punja. What pious activities have these boys undergone?
Yeah.
To have this opportunity it's 2 verses, and there are 4 categories that they're compared to. They're compared to the yogis that always see Super Soul within their heart, the same Krishna within their heart in a state of neutrality. There are those who are Dasya Bhaktas, and they see him as the Supreme Lord. There's materialists who see him as an ordinary fellow. And there's impersonalists who think he has no form and no qualities. And these boys just playing with him.
Yeah.
What good fortune? How did they come to that position? So that's Sukadev looking up to them in that way, because he has the whole spectrum of everything, and they're the whole of Braja Prema is very special. So we're looking up to the Brijvasis and relishing how they're interacting with Krishna, and Krishna's interacting with them. That's what we do at their stage.
Yeah, hopefully we'll reach. Hopefully.
But it's at the right stage, then it's part of how you and I and how sadhakas can perform our sadhana, is with that aspiration or yearning, enthusiasm, and then like greed to attain a position with Krishna and Vrindavan. As we mature in our bhakti, according to our adhikar, according to our qualification, not prematurely. And we're like, if an assembly was asked how many would like to go back to Godhead and be with Krishna, everyone's going to raise their hand. All ISKCON devotees are going to raise their hand. And then there are steps. We have to have the qualification, the purity of intention of pleasing Krishna. Look at these boys. They're asking for tal fruits, but they're not, there's only one thing. They want Krishna and Balaram to have the tal fruits. And they want the demon to be killed. And now they take tal fruits too. But it's they're enjoying that Krishna's enjoying that they're enjoying. There's no me-centeredness in their lives. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So Guru Maharaj, please correct me in my understanding if this is related to what she was saying and you were explaining. That isn't what, aren't the Gopas, the Gopis, and whoever is related to Krishna are eternally liberated, the Nitya Siddhas, and
Not
we
all.
are
most, not all, most.
Okay.
Some are new recruits.
Okay.
And they, from their previous lives, they become eligible to take birth along with Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and be trained up by the Nitya Siddhas.
See.
You with me?
Yeah.
You've heard that before.
Yeah, I have. But
So they're not all Nitya Siddhas. Some are, and some are being
see.
trained.
okay. So which means even the Nitya Badhas can.
Well, yes, but those who are in this worldly condition can become perfect, and they don't straight away go to Goloka. They straight away go to a place where they take birth and get further opportunity for association with Krishna and the association of his eternal associates. And it's not like boot camp, but it's like an apprenticeship or internship kind of situation.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you once again for your recitings. I was just like we're talking about this like soul and super soul. Like I was just having this confusion that every kid who is born he have a like soul and a super soul inside his body, and then the way he was brought up and the circumstances or like where he's brought up, he get inclination or like faith into different demigods or like different messages of the god, like not particularly Krishna, but maybe like Shiva or like Jesus or anybody, any other gods, right? So do they, and we know that Krishna, until you really worship Krishna, you can't achieve Krishna, but they are still doing some kind of like spiritual practice. But will they ever be able to come back to Krishna, or
Who's they?
I mean, like any person, like
Any person.
any
Yes.
person,
Potentially, yes.
yeah.
The potential is there in any soul. You know, out in the yard here, there's a bunch of plants and probably some bugs and maybe some birds and some other species and so forth. There's the potential there too. It's not going to happen right away, but spirit souls have their parts and parcels of Krishna, and by process they can move quickly, and then by association with devotees get training and move slowly or quickly. But the potential is there because we're soul. This is our Gaudiya understanding. All souls are Krishna's parts and parcels. And we have a natural, eternal relationship with Krishna, which we've forgotten. Jiver Svarpaya Nijera Krishna Das. All jivas. Does that answer your question? I mean, persons like myself. Look at how I'm living my life, and that's not how I grew up. So how did that transition take place? Some good fortune. And I said yes instead of no or maybe. Let me check it out for a little while and then drop it, because some people do that. So there's some free will exercise on our side and a lot of mercy on the other side. Put the two together and then souls are eligible. It does require association from a devotee. It's not just our efforts, but our efforts plus mercy.
Detailed story. I was just reading the same thing in Bhagavat. So, following on the question, some of the people asked about the Gopas and their ability.
Yeah.
So, in the Bhagavat, it says the boys were all Devas born to be Balarama and Krishna's companions. So, is that
that you're going back to her question? Some are that there's different. They've come from different positions. Not all of them are devas. Some of them are devas. But some of them are partial expansions of devas that join with another associate of Krishna. That's a little confusing. How does that work? It's the technology is not in detail spelled out, but there's such a thing as partial expansions of demigods, because Lord Vishnu said to the demigod, or said to Brahma, tell the demigods, take birth on earth first, so they can assist me in my pastimes. Now some took their birth in Braja. Some took their birth outside of Braja, to assist in his pastimes. But it's not like they left their demigod post, hang a sign on the door that say, out to lunch, back again after 125 years. But rather it said a partial expansion of them. And then when the pastimes were over, that partial expansion returned. That, again, the technology isn't described, but that's the explanation that's given. And some of the other associates weren't at all demigods. They're eternal associates. And some of them are neither of those two categories. Some of them are sadhakas that in this life became purified, sufficiently qualified, that's the adhikar, sufficiently qualified to take birth where Krishna is performing his pastimes and experience all of his pastimes with him, according to their position, the age and the gender and everything. Some were elders because they had parental affection, etc. Some were younger friends. Some were so many different positions. Does that answer your question? We have some online questions? No? Vayahari, how about you? Anything back there?
I just had a follow-up question to the point that Indulekha was making.
Speak into the microphone.
So you were saying about the Nitya Leelas and the Nitya Siddhas and the Sadhana Siddhas and the Kripa Siddhas in Krishna Leela. So like we are practicing devotional services.
You're not siddhas at all.
Right. That's not the point I'm making. I'm saying we are practicing devotional service.
Yes.
We are sadhakas
Yes.
now. And what should our aspirations be on an ongoing basis?
This question was asked almost the same way, and my answer the other day was commensurate with our particular trajectory in spiritual evolution, our aspirations should match that. There's the ultimate, and you can say, whatever would fill in the blank, it can have different fill in the blanks, they're right answers. To restore our lost, forgotten, loving relationship with Krishna. To rejoin Krishna's associates in Vrindavan or in the spiritual world, to be always in the mood of serving, fill in the blank in different ways, and there's not like only one right answer. So the long term is make that Krishna connection complete. And then our aspiration presently can be fill in the blank according to our present position. Chant without offense, hear with one pointed attention, chant from the heart. So you can say there's not one right answer. Your question is, what should our aspiration be at this stage? To make incremental steps of progress on the bhakti path under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. It so much depends upon where we are in our spiritual trajectory. Stay in close association of saintly people. Stay in close association with saintly personalities and serve them nicely. And we'll automatically, sadhu sangha and everything is there. And follow as much as we can the nice teachings we've received from them. And learn from their example and follow it. And stay there, stay in that close association. Again, the answer depends upon where we are. I was just visiting in a family's home before coming here, and they have a 7-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old daughter. So what I was saying, what their aspirations should be was, when you were asking your question, I was thinking about that. So the younger one, I said, "Do you chant regularly?" And she looked at her mom, and her mom said, "Not regularly." So then it was, "Do you want to chant regularly?" she looked at her mom. She wants to chant regularly, but she hasn't gotten there yet. So then I said, how, what do you think you can chant regularly? She looked at her mom. And your mom said, what do you think? He said, 1 or 2 rounds a day. I said, okay, well, 1 or 2 rounds means 1 round a day. Okay, so you'll chant 1 round a day. You want to do that? So, yeah. So then, since I left, she said, I'm chanting 2 rounds a day for a whole year. Every day. Because she wanted to. So, what we should aspire for is what we can handle. And then comes, refinement of what that is. A nice one is, I want to chant and read from the heart. Someone was sharing this the other day, some while ago. When I read, I like to read, but I want, I'm in this mood where I want to read. That's just what's going to help me draw my relationship closer to Krishna. And that's the way that I want to read. That's my aspiration. And I'm finding that's really helping me. So, because largely we're habituated, we're trained up in the information gathering mode of our education process. We're rewarded for being good at it, but not being rewarded for, how our heart is affected and what our character is. Okay. Anything here? Online, anything? Wow. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.